Go ahead.
Okay. Finishing a stunt ship. After you have completed your model and everything is sanded out, all your seams and joints and everything are all sanded out nice, you want to put on 2 coats of ZS filler coat, sanded between each coat with 320 grit paper. The next step is to cover the model with silk span. I cover the hard surfaces like the fuselage, stabilizer, the fin with 00 silk span. And I cover the open bay areas like your elevators, your wing, with what they call medium grade silk span. You lay your silk span down on a towel, spray it with water with a Windex sprayer or whatever. Lay it on your wing and then blot it so it's just damp.
Right.
Lay it on your wing and then dope around the edges. And then if you want to speed that up, I take a hair dryer on like medium heat and go over it, and it'll shrink it up.
Right.
But make sure the whole wing and everything is covered first, so that you're shrinking it up evenly, top and bottom.
Right.
Okay. Then you're starting with your clear dope. You want to clear dope everything: your fuselage, wing, stab, elevators, flaps, whatever you're doing.
Right.
At this point, the flaps, elevators, the rudder, whatever are your components. They're not on the airplane. You're doing them all separate.
Okay.
You're not hinging. Your hinge holes are all in there. You got everything together, but you take all that stuff apart when you finish.
Okay.
So that your flaps are covered individually, elevators are individual, fin, your rudder, all that's individual.
Right.
Okay, the next step, you're going to put a coat of clear on everything and let that dry. Like I say, if you want to hair dryer it a little bit, you can. And it's going to be kind of fuzzy feeling. You want to sand that out very carefully with 320 grit.
Okay.
Very carefully. Just like this, real quick.
Okay.
You don't want to go through the paper.
Right. Right.
Okay. After that step, then it goes to the ZS filler coat mix. You paint, you brush on everything, on all your components, the airframe, everything. Let that dry. Don't hair dryer. Just let that dry for a day.
Okay.
320 grit again, very carefully. Sand that all out, and you'll start to see when you sand that filler coat, it starts to fill because you'll start getting real dusty stuff off of it. And just, okay. After that's done, I take a little damp cloth and just go around it just to kind of damp cloth all the dust off.
Okay.
Then another coat of clear.
All right.
Let that dry. Then another coat of the filler coat.
All right.
Sand that. And now you got 3 coats on there. It's starting to tighten everything up, but you're sanding everything back down smooth. Okay?
Right.
Then the last coat of clear goes on, again 50-50, brushed on.
Okay.
But it's not sanded.
Okay. All right.
At this point, it should feel fairly smooth, and the silk span should be fairly tight.
Okay.
On all your open bay stuff.
It's just regular dope, not shrink dope, right? Just regular dope.
Regular butyrate brodac dope.
Okay.
It's low shrink dope.
Okay.
That's all I work with is the brodac dope.
Okay.
The butyrate clear.
All right.
The next step, and this is what'll make or break the plane.
Okay.
You're going to start spraying in silver.
Yeah, it's right here.
You're going to get a quart of silver.
Passed it right up then.
And then get another quart can and pour silver in it so that you got 2 quarts mixed or thin 50-50.
Okay.
And then just stir it, thin it.
No, it's happening.
I got an air compressor and a touch-up gun.
Okay.
I pour the silver in the touch-up gun and I spray at 25 psi.
Okay.
Very carefully with even strokes. Spray your silver on everything.
Right.
Let it dry for 2 days.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now you're going to start to wet sand the silver with 600 grit triamite paper.
Okay.
It's the black colored triamite paper.
Okay. All right.
And you'll start sanding. And when you're sanding and sanding, you'll start to see all the little pores fill and the water will start to get sort of grayish looking. That's okay. Just make sure when you're sanding and where you're sanding, you keep it wet.
Okay. It's just water, no.
Just water. Well, actually, if you want, you could use Windex.
Okay.
If you want to do that, you can.
Okay. All right.
Then after the first coat of silver is sanded,
Mm-hmm.
the silver will show you any kind of a little ding, dent, imperfection or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using
I thought it was his.
I've been using combi putty. You can get it at the auto stores.
Okay. I'm not familiar with combi putty.
Combi putty. It
Okay.
comes in a tube. It's a green looking stuff.
Okay.
I used to use nitro stain,
Mhm.
but the nitro stain was with the old auto finishing stuff. You can't get it anymore, but you can use combi putty. If you got a little ding or a dent or an imperfection that you want to get out of somewhere in the plane,
Right.
don't use it on any of the open bays, but like along in a fillet or
Sure.
somewhere on the fuselage. Squeeze it out of the tube with a razor blade. Just take it out of the tube with a razor blade,
Okay.
and the little ding, just smear it right in the razor with a razor
Okay.
blade. Just push it right in,
Uh-huh.
as flat as you can get it,
Okay.
and then it'll dry in about maybe 15 minutes.
Right. Right.
Then you can spray over it with water or Windex,
Mhm.
and very carefully wet sand that in, that imperfection. Very carefully that you don't go through.
Right.
And then just wet sand that combi putty right in, and then feel it.
Okay.
You can see it, but when it's right, you can't feel it, but you
Right.
can see it.
Okay.
That little imperfection is gone.
All right.
So at this stage of the game, I go all over any kind of a little imperfection, wingtips, along any kind of a seam.
Mm-hmm.
You look for all those in your silver.
Okay.
Once that's done, it's another coat of silver.
Okay.
Let it dry for another 2 days,
All right.
and then start wet sanding your silver all over again.
All right.
And then take it down pretty good, but not all the way. And then on your open bays, when you're sanding in
Right.
between your wing ribs,
Right.
you go back and forth about 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
And that's it. It'll take it down.
Okay.
But you don't want to go through your silk spin.
No. No.
Okay.
Okay.
And then when you got that second coat of silver completely done,
Right.
look for any more imperfections and go back to your combi putty if you need to.
Uh-huh.
If you find a couple of them, combi putty them in, wet sand them down, and just fog it with the silver and leave it alone.
Okay.
And then look at it after you've done it with the silver. If it looks like it may be raised up or a
Right.
little bit, go back over it again, and then just fog it with the silver.
Okay.
Okay? This is personal preference. So if you want to do your third coat of silver,
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually, but if you do your third coat of silver, then I start sanding with 1200 grit.
Okay.
It's going to make that silver look like a molded silver bullet. Your plane
Right.
should look like a molded silver bullet when you're done at that stage.
Okay.
If you have sprayed your first coat of silver, got all your imperfections done, when you do your second coat of silver and you look around and say, man, it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you might be able to just go ahead with 1200 grit and sand that in, and if it looks really good to you, no imperfections, it looks like a molded silver bullet, now you're going to start your color.
Okay.
Okay, when you start your color, whatever color you're going to use, however you want to paint the plane, the stuntress, I'll take that for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the base coat to be that real pretty light blue.
Right.
I painted that light blue in, but I misted it in. I thinned it like 50-50,
Right.
and when I sprayed it, I held the gun about maybe a good 4 inches off the surface,
Okay.
and very carefully sprayed it back and forth,
Right.
very carefully. And you want to work when the humidity is not real bad, or you can use some retarder.
Okay.
At this point, you really don't want your paint to be blushing on you.
Right. Okay.
So the base coat on the stuntress was all blue. I got the blue finished. Then I started masking off my trim areas.
Okay.
Trim areas, like on the stuntress, the leading edge of the wing, I wanted 3 different colors. The leading edge, about maybe 5 inches back, was done in Miami blue, which is a dark blue.
Okay.
I drew little lines with a straight edge where I want to mask,
Okay.
and you can do that very carefully if you want. And then I take painter's tape, that blue painter's tape from Lowe's, and I use that. It's very low tack.
Okay.
Make sure you get the low tack, easy release tape.
Right.
I usually cut that. I got a glass tabletop.
Okay.
I usually cut that in like 1/4-inch strips.
Okay.
And I start going along my masking where I want it. If you have a compound curve that's real sharp, use white electrical tape. Cut it in like 1/4-inch strips or 1/8-inch strips, and then you can pull that tape around a perfect curve.
Yeah.
And then you can take your blue tape and make little pieces and go around the edge of that so it doesn't lift up on you.
Right.
But it'll give you the curve that you want.
Right. Very good. I never heard of that.
Yeah, that's how I get my perfect little curves, using electrical tape, but cut it in 1/4-inch pieces because you can pull it and stretch it.
Right.
And it'll stick down.
Right.
Don't use the black color tape because
Okay.
it leaves a nasty sticky film.
Okay.
You don't want that.
Alrighty.
So whatever you want to trim, just use those 2 tapes,
Okay.
kinds of tape. And then once your whole paint scheme is completely finished, you're going to start your clear coats.
Now you actually will cover. So you put down this silver, then you put your base color, the light blue, and then you got the yellow, the blue, and the other darker blue. All. You actually, some parts you actually have 2 different colors on top of each other. I know Wendy tried to avoid.
Wendy went into depths on that. I
tried to avoid putting color on top of color.
Wendy used to do his paint scheme. He would do the paint scheme first, and then back mask everything, and then do the color. If you want to do that, you can.
I was just curious.
I did it. I've done it the other way around. I don't know how much weight it really saves.
Okay.
But Wendy was a perfectionist at that.
Okay.
But man, it's going to take you a long time. Like if you wanted to do, let's say you wanted to do a paint scheme like this.
Right.
And you wanted to put that arrow on.
Right.
So you put that arrow on over the silver.
Right.
Then you got to back mask that whole arrow,
Right.
and then cover it over with tape, and mummy that all in that shape,
Right.
and then spray your color over that.
Right.
And that's a lot of work. But Wendy was a perfectionist.
Okay.
And that was his way of doing
Okay.
it. I did it a couple times. I went back to just putting my regular paint scheme over the base coat.
Okay.
But I put the base coat on very, very thin
Okay.
and very, very light.
Right. So you just want just the color, and then you're
Just
gonna
enough
and
color
you're
to
gonna
coat the
just
color of the silver.
cover it, and then you're just gonna put clear over that. Anyway, that's where your shine comes from.
Right.
That's what I'm learning.
Okay, now the say you got your paint scheme, everything's all done. Now you're gonna start shooting your clear.
Okay.
Okay, now I start off with my Brodak clear, butyrate, and I thin it 50-50.
Okay.
Okay. And you want to make sure you're in somewhere where it's not going to blush. I spray in the dead of winter, like Wendy did, when it's cold out. And I got like a shed with a little heater in it.
Okay.
And there's no humidity. It's cold. I got a little heater in there. I can adjust the heat up or down to get my clear so it doesn't blush.
Okay.
I'll spray a little bit. I'll wait for about 15 minutes and watch what it does.
Right.
If I need more heat, then I can upgrade the heat
Okay.
until you can spray and that clear is coming in really nice for you without blushing.
Okay.
So
Now,
it's-
what causes blushing? Yeah.
Humidity causes blushing.
Okay.
Humidity causes the dope wants to dry faster, and it traps moisture.
Okay.
And when the moisture gets trapped, it turns a milky white color.
Okay.
So you don't want that. If it gets real bad at this point, I will, and in fact, right from the get-go, I add about 2 or 3 ounces of Brodak retarder in it.
Okay.
Makes it dry slower.
Okay.
And with the heat going, it should go right on, but I'll shoot a swath carefully with my my touch-up gun,
Right.
and I'll watch it. And if it starts to blush, I can turn the heat up a little more so it dries the air
Right.
inside my little spray booth.
Right. I follow
Or
you.
I can add a little more retarder. Just you
Okay.
want to get it so that that spray is going on and it's nice and clear
Right.
with no blush.
Right.
When it's right,
Right.
spray the whole airplane.
Okay.
If you got a canopy, mask the canopy off.
Mm-hmm.
All your little components like your cowling, flaps, elevators, fin, or not your fin, but your rudder.
Mm-hmm.
I get little tiny dowel rods, or if I go into the Chinese restaurant, I'll get chopsticks,
Right.
and I'll cut them down and I'll stick them in there, because I use point hinges. I don't use the long plastic hinges. I
Okay.
use the Robart point hinges because they're more scale looking.
Okay.
So doing that, I have a little hole cut in my trailing edge for the hinge or the flat,
Mm-hmm.
and these little dowel rods I make up, I can stick them right on there and I can hold them up. I can spray,
Very, very good.
and then I have a little block of wood, like a little 1x
Mm-hmm.
piece of wood with holes drilled in it.
All right.
Once I get my, let's say I'm doing my fin,
Okay.
I spray my fin, and I stick it down in this little hole, and this little wood, it just sits there and dries.
Right.
It's like a
Very
little
good.
hole, but it sits up in midair.
Right. I follow you.
And I do all my components first. Actually, I do all my components first. Wendy used to call them guinea pigs.
Yes. Exactly.
Let me do my guinea pigs. Okay,
Exactly.
this is how
so
it's
you
going
can
to
see
go.
how they dry and
Right.
and adjust your mixture.
Right.
Okay.
And your heater,
and your
however.
technique too.
Right. So once you got your first coat done,
Mm-hmm.
everything's good. I let it dry for a good 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Then I take it in and I start wet sanding with 1200 grit.
Okay.
And wherever your tape line is, you wet sand, you feel your tape line, you're knocking it down.
Okay.
It's still going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to build up your second coat of clear, and then you're going to repeat this process on your
Right.
second coat of clear.
Right.
But on the second coat of clear, I go to 1500 grit,
Okay.
and then you're starting to see the shine because you're
Right.
wet sanding the shine right in, right there.
Right.
You're gonna build it up a little. The 15 grit is gonna take it down, but not harshly.
Okay.
It's gonna starting to take away where your masking tape was.
Okay.
So you get all that done. That's gonna take you a good week or so
Right.
because you're gonna do all your components and your airframe and everything.
Right.
And when you're sanding around a tight curve like on your cowl, be very careful. I get that paper real wet, and I bend that paper, and I learn to use my fingertips or curve the paper in the palm of my hand, and I'm going over it. And just wet sand carefully and try to be real careful that you don't cut through.
Right.
Because when you do, you can fix it, but you got to do it.
Right.
And I've done it 1,000 times.
Right.
Cut
Right.
through.
Right.
So, and then let's see, you get your second coat all done.
Right.
And man, that thing looks like a piece of glass. I mean, oh, it looks great.
Right.
All right, now you're going to do your third coat of clear. You're going to thin it like 60-40. It's
Okay.
going to that dope is going to look like water.
Right.
And then you can actually even thin with a little bit of your retarder,
Okay.
and then get that mixed up in your jar, and make sure your jar is absolutely clean.
I thought
you
he
don't
told
want
me
any
we wanted
little-
gallons.
Little black dots or specks or
He
anything
brought
getting in
sports.
Right.
that dope. Another thing I want to go back
Yeah,
and
I know,
say,
but I
have
thought we
two
wanted
spray
gallons,
cans. I have two touch-up guns.
Okay.
One touch-up gun is for color. One touch-up gun is for clear only.
Okay.
Because if you're going back and forth, well, you might have a blue color in there or a green color or something,
Right.
and you start spraying your clear, and all of a sudden it's shooting little green dots in
Right.
clear.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I do. Two different spray cans.
Okay.
One for color, one for clear.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're doing our third coat of clear.
Right.
60-40 mix. Very carefully spray it on. Go real slow with your spray can and watch it flow out. If
Okay.
the flow out is looking beautiful with no blush, do your little guinea pigs first.
Okay.
Then do your airframe if everything looks good. When it looks like it needs to be, let it dry for probably a week.
Okay.
And then go over, and at this point you might not even feel your tape line.
Wow.
Okay, then I wet sand. This is the final sanding. This is what makes the plane. I final sand with 2,000 grit.
Okay.
And you sand and sand and sand, and 2,000 grit doesn't cut real fast,
Right.
but it does, so you
Right.
still got to be careful.
Okay.
It's a feel thing. It's something you have to
feel,
feel
yeah.
when you're doing it.
Right.
Once it's all wet sanded with the 2,000 grit, you can candle it. You
Okay.
can look it up and candle it.
Right.
You should see a nice glass sheen, but when you bring it back down, it looks dull looking.
Right. Right.
Because that's the way it should look.
Right. It's all
Because now
flat
you're-
then.
Now you're finished, and now you're going to rub that out with Gorham silver polish.
Where do you get Gorham silver
can't get it
polish?
no
Okay.
So I don't know what to
I've been,
tell you to use.
I've been looking on eBay, and I'm like,
Gorham's went out they went out years ago. Me and my buddy Chip Smith years ago, we bought about 4 cases of it. Because I knew
Okay.
they were going out, I got 2 cases left.
okay,
And it's going to last me for whatever.
sure.
And I think we actually gave Wendy a case because he was having trouble finding it. Today, I really don't know if there's any kind of silver polish out there. I don't know if there's a liquid silver polish or if there's a paste type silver polish you can use.
Okay,
But that's what the Gorham silver polish is what made the finish.
okay,
And you're just sitting there and you're rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. You'll rub these fingers, they'll become raw. They'll just work on it day by day.
okay,
And you do your little guinea pigs first to see how they're coming out. And then I use one soft cloth
okay,
and I spray it real good with water and I wrap it around these 2 fingers and I dip it in the silver polish and I just start rubbing. I do probably about a 8-inch square piece or whatever, or
Right.
my guinea pigs.
Right.
I'll start out with my rudder
okay,
and I'll just start wet sand or rubbing that into the rudder. And I take and I do that with Windex. I spray a little Windex on, Gorham silver polish, and I just start polishing and polishing and polishing. When it starts to get dry, I'll add a little more and
Right.
polish a little more. Then you'll start to see your polish actually become a light glassy film.
okay,
At that point, you take another rag and you just buff the living heck out of it.
okay.
And then when you come out, you
Wow.
ought to see yourself in it.
Yeah.
That's where you're at.
All right. Thank
And
you.
it takes 6 to 7 months to do it.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Right. When I'm masking off an area,
Okay.
let's say I'm masking off, and I only want to make a 1/4-inch stripe, and I'll mask that off with my tape. I don't want the rest of the plane to get any kind of that paint on it. So
Right.
if I'm doing a mask, let's say on my stunters, I started off with the dark blue.
Right.
So I'm going to do the dark blue on both wings and then back on the tail. So I mask them all off. Wendy was taking aluminum foil
Right.
and pressing it down.
Can you get
The aluminum foil was actually causing dents in my plane.
Okay.
I was taking the blue automotive paper towels
Okay.
and taping them down and mumming it all up with paper towels,
Okay.
and then spray what you need to spray, and then remove everything.
Okay.
And just keep the paper towels for, you can retape them. I took the edge of the paper towel, lay it down on my glass top,
Mm-hmm.
and then put the tape on it, and then pick it up and lay it down along where I need
Okay.
to, where I don't want any paint to get. In fact, the tape that you have around the masked area,
Uh-huh.
I was going around it with the tape with the paper towels, actually double layering that around
Okay.
so you won't get no weep under.
Okay.
And because I do a lot of when I'm spraying, I spray very lightly, and when I'm airbrushing dries like that.
Right.
Years ago, I used to take a little bit of clear dope
Okay.
and put it around inside that.
That's what Wendy always talked about and
Yeah,
taught that.
but with this new painter's tape, you don't need to.
Okay.
In fact, I was getting a thicker edge with the clear dope around that edge. When I pull a tape, I was getting a thicker edge, and I had to wet sand down.
Okay.
So with this new tape, like that painter's tape
Mm-hmm.
or the electrical tape, if you spray carefully, you don't need it.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Gary Lutz. I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland,
right.
and I've been modeling since I was probably an 8-year-old kid. started flying control line when I was 8 years old, and I'll take it to the grave. I'll always do it. I do a radio control also, but
Very
control
good.
line's my first love. So
Very cool. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
right.